treating the observable symptoms, like say that plant in the background sort of thing. I could diagnose it with quite a few things just based on my observation of it. It doesn't really get to the understanding. I think observation and understanding of a person are two different things, and that. So I think if any diagnosis should be made of someone, even with schizophrenia, for example, it's understanding not only does, well, this person just seems to me that they're not presenting as normal, and I've circled all the questions and all that. They now have to label as schizophrenia because that's what I had.
I started my YouTube channel back in 2017, following a bit of a wake-up call. I had a literal bang to the head, and it caused me to think differently about my life, but specifically my physical health and my mental health. And from then on, what was meant to be a chronicling of this journey of evolving, of finding ways to enhance both physical and mental health, lots of things have come my way. And one of them has been the Wim Hof Method, which was really the catalyst to my changing, but also more recently SOMA Breath. And I've now qualified as an instructor. And I've also met with a rather interesting chap that we're now about to meet. I'll introduce you in a second. A lovely chap called Dion from Australia. And he's got an interesting story to tell.
And thank you very much for having me. I really do appreciate it. It's sort of a weird experience, I think. So it's like when you watch someone so much on YouTube and then all of a sudden you're talking to them. But yes, so I'm Dion. I live in Brisbane. Originally came from New Zealand. When I moved over when I was 5, went to Sydney and then Brisbane ever since. But my story, I guess, of the Wim Hof Method, how I came across it, how it actually, because I experienced complex post-traumatic stress disorder, just from early childhood trauma. The Wim Hof Method for me was recommended by a psychologist who was currently doing the Wim Hof Method at the time. And it was sort of recommended because whenever I had a trauma reaction, one of the things, because there's always those mindfulness techniques, like what are you aware of, what are you touching, what are you feeling, sort of thing. But one of those was, and I think I came across it because I had worked as a mental health support worker for 10 years, sort of frontline work. So I'd sort of come across these mindfulness techniques. And one of it was to hold an ice cube, and that would sort of bring yourself back into the now, because as trauma, you either disassociate or you're just not aware of your physical body. Holding the ice cube, and I was holding it until it was like water, no longer in its solid form. So it was recommended to me. So, and I'd seen Wim Hof on those there's this Dutchman running through the snow and bare feet and those sorts of, but never of the method. So when it was recommended to me and I saw it, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I started, before I actually signed up to do the fundamentals course, I tried, I think I'm trying to remember now, it was almost like a trial, sort of like a 3-day, it was a bit of the breathing, introducing to the cold showers. And at that time it was winter. I started going into, and I was not a fan of the cold, never have been. And winter was, I'm a summer person when it comes to, in Queensland, you basically get 2 seasons, winter and summer.
But what is, just for context, what does a winter mean for you in Brisbane? Because
today
I would imagine it's probably different to our winter.
No snow. If we get snow, something's wrong.
Exactly.
Well, not in the city. Maybe out Stanford Way, sort of thing. You might get it there every now and again, but here it's. You probably get a frost on the grass. It was. Right. I think this morning I was doing qigong outside. It was 5 degrees and that. So. So it gets cold, and probably with Brisbane around August and that, we get a lot of the winds, like it just starts blowing a gale. So that's probably the worst because you got the cold and the wind. But as far as like the nice changing of the leaves, autumn and all that, it's just basically winter, summer.
And just as a very quick point, I think that's really interesting. Your statement there around I've never been able to deal with the cold, and I think probably that's the case for most Australians. Although you're a Kiwi, I realise. But I mean, had you stayed in New Zealand, it would have been different.
Definitely.
You would have had some accessible glaciers to have fun in. But I think if you're living in a warm country, I think that's what makes the Wim Hof method. Sorry, my glasses are slightly crooked. I'm just looking there. I think that's what makes the Wim Hof method even more of a challenge, because you're not used to any form of significant cold. You know, if the temperature doesn't go below zero, then of course, if you experience and do the Wim Hof method properly, it's going to feel a little bit extra shocking. So anyway, carry on.
Exactly. And it's like when I saw and even when you were talking with those two people from, was it the primal being? Primal being, and like hosing yourself outside. And I saw once where you're putting water on yourself and it was snow around. It's like, I was thinking, still haven't experienced that yet. But so I started doing in the winter, and I was doing like the trial beforehand, because I always like to, I'm a bit of a research person beforehand. I'd started going into the cold showers, and at that time I didn't know that in the fundamentals it's a slow exposure. It's just not like, you know, here's a breathing and straight into the ice bath. There's none of that. So I'd started going in, and I always found the turning the hot slowly off and the cold, that was more torture. So I just started going straight into the cold and just seeing how I was feeling. It was like 8 degrees one morning because we're in winter, and then like going in, like I was thinking, the brain, the psychology of like, it's almost like the worst case scenario that you're stepping into a cold shower, even though you're choosing to stand. No one's forcing you into the cold shower. You can get out when you want. But it's like going into the cold shower, I was thinking, this is going to be worse. And I went in, and it's like, it was okay. And then the following, the next mornings, it was like, I think it was down a couple of degrees or just a few more degrees less. And it was like, my brain was like, this will be worse. And I got in, and it's like, this is actually just kind of the same. It's like same sort of experience. And then I realized, this is a bit of a psychological trick that my brain is playing on me. Like I'm fearing the worst outcome. When it was just, I mean, you come out refreshed and switched on for the day. I started doing the fundamentals, and with the trauma itself, because I was doing not only the fundamentals, I was doing a few other trauma treatments, but nothing medical, like medication related. There's a thing called TRE, which is trauma release exercises, because you've got the psoas muscle in your hips, which is your fight, flight, freeze muscle. So it's basically activating a tremor. So you're basically sort of shaking or having fascia releases in the body as the body releases that stored trauma. With the trauma itself, when it was very bad, for example, like I've been medicated pretty much since my early 20s to, up until like 39, I think it was, that I came off my last meds.
Wow. And what were they?
So I was misdiagnosed quite a few times. And I was, probably when I was younger, first diagnosed with, it was called absence seizures, or petit mal at the time. And I think it was when I was in grade 4 or 3, one of those two, because I was sort of like just blanking out sort of thing in class. And just zoning out. And I'm trying to remember because my brain can be a bit funny with memory. But we ended up, I remember the teacher at the time, because I had a distinct memory of a purple dragon coming into the class and eating the teacher. And when someone would ask me a question, my brain wasn't answering the question. It was the dragon eating the teacher.
Wow.
So therefore, I'm not being productive in class. So I ended up starting getting pulled out of class and like getting EEGs and like measuring my brain waves and seeing what was going on. And I got put on, I don't know the name of the medication because I was young, but I was put on medication for like just blanking out. I came off and I don't know why, because normally you have to like come off slowly. I remember I just stopped taking it. At the time, I had a sister that had passed away later on around, I think it was 1999. But that's okay. Yeah, and she was actually, the reason I was blanking out was not that I was like disassociating or having absence issues. I was actually escaping like the trauma or my brain, because my sister was running away at the time and like not good in the family. And then a large portion, probably up until I think it was my early 20s, and it was actually myself that I started noticing that I was blanking out again. And before that, I was diagnosed with depression. I started taking medication, I think it was called Acupressure for depression, but I came off that because I just had I remember being on a bus and wanting to vomit sort of thing. It was just had a bad reaction with me. And then I had an old family GP who recommended going to see a neurologist, and I started getting tested again for all the dissociation or absence seizures, as they class it as petit mal back then. So I started taking medication, Lamictal, I think it was like 200 milligram for that. And then also the other thing was my brain. I have a very creative brain. I was perceiving that I was hearing voices and that. So, and I was dysfunctional, I guess you could say. Like I wasn't really, like my way of interacting with life wasn't perceived as normal. So I started seeing the family GP recommended a psychiatrist. I saw the psychiatrist. He diagnosed me with schizophrenia.
Right.
So two things I was told was I would have schizophrenia for the rest of my life. I would have, I'll be on medication for the absence seizures for the rest of my life. So I had these two things that was a definite that I'll be on for life.
A labeling.
Basically, yeah. So I had, and it's very important, that word labeling too, because the other thing, and also in my work with mental health, is you become your label. That's how you identify yourself. Exactly. I am a schizophrenic. This is how I act. This is how my diagnosis is. So therefore, and it's not a good thing. That's the labeling itself. So probably fast forward, and there's a lot fast forwarding through his like life events, like my sister passing away. She had Marfan syndrome. So she it's a condition that makes you grow really tall, affects the heart, which is actually what ended up, she passed away. She had 2 kids beforehand and was pregnant with 2 twin girls at the time and passed away with them. Had a heart attack, basically. So, and that was all around when I was getting diagnosed as well. So, so life events, the environment was more perpetuating the diagnosis. So fast forward to like later on in life, getting towards like, say 38 or so, like, and I was married, I am married. So I'm talking about everything in past tense. I am married. My wife was starting to think, hey, you're not sort of also matching some of these like diagnoses and that, like when you look at absence seizures, how I came to be way back in the past. Like absence seizures is you blank out and you can't remember things. It's like, so therefore I shouldn't be remembering what's happening. I'm more escaping. I'm going into like a disassociated, say, like just into a void sort of thing, but I'm aware sort of thing. And with the schizophrenia, it's like she was going, you're not quite there sort of thing. So we, and I had family troubles. I've sort of cut contact with all my family just to keep myself safe. And I started going back to the same psychiatrist, and I had a new GP. So I went back to the same psychiatrist who had diagnosed me with schizophrenia, explained all the environment, and he said, it's not schizophrenia, it's CPTSD. So all my life medicated, and the medication has actually done its damage to my body. Because medication like should be short term. I think there should be some sort of stabilization if someone can't stabilize themselves in some way. If they've gotten into that state where they can't stabilize themselves, long term, no, because like these medications, they're not smart, and they kind of like have a carpet bomb effect on your body sort of thing. They'll start affecting, and sometimes you have to take other medications to stabilize the medication that you've actually taken. So so I saw the psychiatrist. He re-diagnosed me. We came off the medication slowly for the schizophrenia. I was on olanzapine for that. And then, and the funny thing was, I remember my old GP said, I'll give you 101 reasons why you will never come off the Lamictal for the absence seizures. So I found a 102nd reason, which was trauma. I guess the moral of the story here is the science that diagnosed me, and I had to get another EEG at the end of that 6 months to make sure that my brain waves were, you know, whatever, some definition of normal, or at least wasn't showing these absence seizures. And it showed not to be. And now I don't have to take medication for both. But the same science that diagnosed me was the same science that said, you don't have the diagnosis. But one of the things that was in the mix of helping in that process was the Wim Hof Method. It was the one that brought balance, because definitely within my body, it was out of balance. Even coming off the medication, you're on that medication for that amount of time in your life. It's like your body is what is normal, what is equilibrium. I still keep up the Wim Hof Method. Like I actually did the spiritual breathing this morning. The creative breathing is something that I definitely do, because one of the things that I found about myself, like as I was saying on the messages, like I did the Myers-Briggs and it was like INFJ and all that. But I found there was always that empathic side of me. And I do notice that when I'm around people that are a bit, I guess you could say, toxic or just sort of a bit negative, I tend to take that on a bit. And definitely because it focuses on the thyroid and around the chest area. Because if I don't do it, it literally feels like I've got cement like in my veins and in my muscles and all that. But if I focus on just constricting and doing the intermittent hypoxia on that area, it's like, I mean, it's gross, all saliva and all that comes up, and it's like it's all phlegm basically, but it does the job. And but through it all, I learned a lot about trauma, not only just in healing myself, but in trauma, a lot about the medical system and stuff like that. It led me to becoming an EFT practitioner. So I'm qualified to do EFT, which is emotional freedom tapping, which is this sort of stuff, tapping the meridian points. Whilst doing some sort of like Western type cognitive exposure therapy. So I've been doing that for a little bit now. And it led me to, of course, yourself with the SOMA Breath. I watched that video that you first started putting on. I thought I'll have a look, and then had a look at the that introductory to the instructor training videos that goes live that Niraj puts out. And it's like, you know, it's like, ideally I'd like to do the Wim Hof Method as far as like an instructor, but a lot of money and stuff like that. And, and then I started going more into the SOMA stuff, and it's like, it's mind blowing. It's like, and the science, it's like behind like that Niraj puts into like with the Wim Hof Method, there's a lot of questions sometimes that you don't quite get answered as far as like in the how it all works, but Niraj just breaks it all down, and it makes sense. And it's like the SOMA Breath itself, like I do the daily doses in the morning, and definitely the longer journeys. Like there's that journey in the 21-day awakening. There's a journey into the white light one, and I've always find that one really beneficial, and I get all the tingles and everything starts releasing, and it's like that in itself has been and even the therapeutic breathing, like the Kalabati breath. Yeah, and that one's really good, especially if you've got also, I mean, it helps with cleansing the gut, but also if you've got a lot of fire in the gut, sort of thing, like if you're experiencing anger, and that's really good. So yeah, bit of a ramble, but
no, but that's a good ramble. That's quite a story. Some really interesting things I think came up from that. There's a real huge positive in that's you coming off the medication, which isn't easy. I know that, and I think you're right. Medication for certain conditions for some people are exactly the right route probably to go down, because they're immediate, and there's also this sort of, there's also going to be the psychosomatic element of it as well. In other words, a doctor that I trust has said, take this and I'm going to feel better. And you're obviously going to get that relief that you get from it. Your symptoms will decrease, you know, you're going to gain by taking them. But the problem is, as you say, prolonged use of any kind of pharmaceutical always leads to further symptoms that then cause you to probably have to take other pharmaceuticals to deal with the resulting effects, negative effects of those pharmaceuticals. So if ever you're on them, be it antidepressants or whatever, I think you're right. I think it has to be done with the understanding that this is for a period of time to help you through this before you then hopefully consider other more natural methods.
Your body is fully capable of healing itself if it's given the right like tools to heal itself, like naturally in a way. I think also the understanding of trauma, the understanding of what stress can do long-term on the body that actually leads to a lot of these conditions. Like I'm talking asthma, I'm talking diabetes, I'm talking like a lot of mental illnesses, a range of things can actually be attributed to either, like with myself, either like childhood trauma to some like either great extents or small extents. Like there's like big T traumas, which is a big traumatic event, or small T traumas, which is a collection of traumatic events, which can like, and if you're definitely told to suppress a lot of these emotions, then when you suppress, you could either reword it and call it depress. You're depressing these emotions. So I think a lot of it is like the doctor's understanding or willingness to understand. That's the other point, because sometimes I have raised these concerns, and it's like challenging a belief system. It's like it doesn't quite get it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like whether the doctor has the understanding of not only the person that they're treating, but the person and their background, sort of thing, how they came to be. Because a lot of times it's like you've got 15 minutes with a doctor, sort of thing, which is enough time to write a script and not really to understand the person. That's that's more of a system thing. But when it comes to understanding the person, like in myself, like a lot of how I was presenting, if you just stepped into my home environment, you would understand fully. So it would be more, how do you help the home environment rather than treating the individual with this one condition? And I think if you've got something like a DSM, like a diagnostic manual that is more classifying observable, and I think that's the key word there, observable symptoms, or then, I mean, I can observe a lot and diagnose a lot on that sort of thing. So I think going more in depth in a person and seeing their background, how they're presenting, knowing that this medication might be only short term to actually stabilize them. But if the condition is still continuing, and if there's no improvement or a decrease in, like, medication has to be given for this and this, and you just get a long list of medications, then is that actually a smart, logical way of treating someone, where it's just like getting into that numb state? And that's how I felt, very numb. Or is it like looking at the background, the how that person fits in their environment? And sometimes that's a home environment or work environment, whatever. So I think sometimes the medication, it's doing its job, but it's not, once again, smart. It's not like going into the brain and programming it.
It's very much a masking. It's a plaster job, really, isn't it? And as you say, these kind of conversations are never, I think, a case of downing our medical industry, both in this country or in yours. And I know actually the Aussie system is very good. My wife was born in Perth, so
oh wow.
And she lived there for a bit. So I know it's very good. But I think that it's because we're now going through a period of change. What's amazing, I think, is at the very beginning of this conversation, you said that your psychologist recommended the Wim Hof Method. These are the messages I'm beginning to see now, that those in typical traditional Western medicine trained backgrounds are awakening. Their eyes are opening to these other alternative methods. And it's got to be a good thing for them, because why would they want a patient to be on medication for the rest of their lives, to see this person knowing that they can't help them any further? That the only way that they can help, because I would imagine there's stuff going on in here where they're going home at the end of the day and they're thinking, shit, this guy, I really want to help him further, but at the moment, with what the tools that I have, I can't. All I can do is prescribe further medication that is just masking the symptoms. It's just numbing, as you say. So if they can offer these ideas, these methods, these practices that are now thankfully proven, they have research backing them, that those in Western medically trained roles, if they can provide these ideas and practices, that's got to be a good thing for them. It must make them feel better. I think the really important thing here is that there are all these methods. They're all natural methods. That is my son. Say hello, Lockie.
Hey, how you going?
So yeah, the important thing is that it's a bit like pharmaceuticals and medication. If you put all of your hope and energy in that one pill fixing you for life, then you're going down the wrong path. For all the reasons we've discussed. And it's the same with natural methods as well, I think. I've certainly believed that life is a journey, that what I'm doing is I'm on a path where I doubtless think in 5 years' time, some of the stuff that I believe and that I do may well be different, because I will have gained by further taking on more knowledge and information and trying new methods that work for me. And I think it's a case of whatever works. And, you know, if what you're doing with the various techniques that you do work, brilliant, that is it. It's that simple. Doesn't matter what techniques they are, as long as they're natural. And I say that in the sense that if we can all avoid taking in toxic chemicals, I mean, we do that enough through food. So, you know, pharmaceutical help is you know, it's best to kind of get off it, isn't it, ASAP? So
another way of looking at it is that life is a constant thing. It's never like this is you for the rest of your life. I mean, when you look back at it, I mean, Lockie, for example, at one stage of his life couldn't walk, sort of thing, and now can walk, sort of thing. He's learned from crawling, and now will be going forward in life. I mean, there's been times that we've been in incredible pain, but we're no longer in incredible pain. Or I'll put it in a dieting sense, like the pill can only do so much to help you lose weight, sort of thing. There's got to be a point where you take control of your life and start to heal yourself, or start getting yourself running down the road, sort of thing. That the pill might help for a little bit. It might cause a bit of a diuretic effect that does a few things that help, but I think at some stage it's like, and I think that's the good thing about the Wim Hof and also the SOMA method, is it gives you those tools to heal yourself. And like with like the SOMA, like unlocks your inner pharmacy sort of thing. It's like, so yeah. And think about it, like saves you money as well. Like if you don't have to keep going for massages or keep going for daily medications sort of thing. It's like that saves you money. And also the other thing is with the medical system, as you were saying before, like it's more cost effective in the sense of like having where the patient can actually take a lot of care of themselves. Like that's less, like it's less constricting on the system sort of thing. And it's also causes less burnout, because it takes a lot of energy if you're still medicating someone and they're getting no results, and then you have to prescribe more medications, and you're still not getting results, and that's not really job satisfaction in a way. So then you start getting burnt out. If they can heal themselves and unlock, then you're only really having to care for sort of the major of things. It's like, or surgeries or whatever sort of things. So it's like, it's more energy efficient, I guess, in a way, if the patient can actually heal themselves.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way of putting it, because and you'll know this from being in the front line of mental health, that when you're surrounded by others that are suffering, their suffering impacts you. Because no matter how happy you are and how content you are in your life, and whether you've got it all figured out, and by the way, nobody ever has, but whether or not you have, you understandably can't help but pick up on that negative impact that they're having has an effect on you. And you know, we can talk in terms of energy, but not in any other way other than just when you're in a negative state, you're giving off negative energy, and that negative energy is palpable, especially to those that are sensitive, but especially those that work in the field. And after a while, you will suffer because you've been around it too much. So if you can get the reward of seeing somebody change, i.e., not giving them a pill that's keeping them in the same state for the rest of their life, but giving them something that has has this significant change in their psychology, that reward alone of knowing you've helped them just by offering that advice, it will help you deal with the negative impact of having that negative energy around you. It's, you know, it's kind of, we don't even have to get woo-woo about this. It's just kind of, it makes sense, doesn't it? It's
I mean, if you're around positive people doing positive things, it's like you always want to surround yourself with people that are lifting you up, sort of thing. If you're surrounded by negative people that are pushing you down, then you're going to have that negative. It's not rocket science. But I think also like say like when I do the EFT, when I'm working with someone, like tapping on someone, and some of these people have a lot of stuff that they've got stored in them, but I actually come off with a high because they've actually had significant results, and the results are long. Like it's not just short term and they go back to how they were, it's long term. So I come away feeling good, and because I'm also tapping on the points, I'm getting the borrowed benefits from it. So you become energized and you become enthusiastic about your work. I think you become disillusioned with your work, or just disappointed. And I think that has an unfortunate play-on effect to the patient, sort of thing.
It does.
And I'll get a little controversial here. I'll say that term doctor shopping, sort of thing. Sometimes it's maybe, some people are, but I guess it's like, are they just trying to find the right shop that works for them, sort of thing? It's like the right treatment that works for them, because they might not be getting their needs met, sort of thing. Or in the same sense of like the patient becomes the source of the blame, for example, because they're not quite performing or not quite getting the desired, whatever the desired results are, which can be disillusioning. It's not because it's like the doctor's doing anything wrong. It's just because what they're practicing is not quite getting the results that
Yeah.
is desired.
And they don't have any other answers. Yeah, because all they've been given are certain tools and methods that have worked for other people in the past, but when it stops working, they don't really know where to go. So I think they want all these other ideas. They want to be able to pass their patients on to somewhere that they know can work and can help them long term.
And that's a huge, I think, point that you just made there is like it might work for some people, but maybe like my treatment that I got like with the medication would probably work great for someone, and then they'll go on in their life and benefit quite well. But as we're a unique human sort of thing, it's like, even if like twins, for example, still react to a movie or a life situation differently sort of thing.
Yeah.
We're not clones sort of thing. So therefore a medication might work for someone really great, might have disastrous effects for other people sort of thing. So I think it comes back to, once again, the background or the environment of the person, how that actual medication and the long-term effects, like whether you're taking that long-term and what it's doing to the body, because it doesn't do that. It might treat, like, say you might be hearing voices, it might calm things down, but it's kind of like, it's like that finger in the damn thing. It's like you steal one leak and you've got 20 other leaks to pop up sort of thing. So
and on the subject of the voices thing as well, I think the real shame with Western society is that we immediately assume that if somebody's hearing voices that they're negative. We immediately assume that somebody is, we're immediately thinking, right, labeling schizophrenia. It's this immediate assumption that what their experience is not normal, therefore they, straight away labeled as somebody with a condition.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that people in parts of Africa, in possibly India, whenever they hear voices, not only do the persons experiencing that believe that those voices are helping them, but so do the medical profession around them. So, or if we go back thousands of years, those people that were hearing voices were perceived as the ones that should be, the seer of the tribe. They should be the healer of the tribe, because those voices obviously are voices from the gods or voices from the spirits. And even now in parts of Africa or certain other bits of the world, those voices are really just possibly former relatives passing on advice. And so that context around the belief of those voices being positive totally changes how they view themselves and how others view them. In this country, in your country, in America, in other Western societies, that belief around where those voices come from automatically makes everybody that understands you're going through this perceive this as a negative experience.
Exactly. And there's a few things I can say to that. Like I do remember one of my first ever psychologists, because I've had a few in my time, but I remember her saying that, like, religion, for example, like could have been based, like, I'm not sure how she came up with this, but I just remember how she said that it could be based on the storytelling narrative of someone experiencing voices and that. I mean, through the SOMA, we've learned definitely like basis of religion and all that.
Yeah.
But the other interesting, which is true. I mean, it's like if someone's telling a good narrative sort of thing, and it's quite out there, then it's like, and if no one's got any different, then and it's believable. I mean, why not? But there's also, like, there was a time where I was working for a mental health organization that actually had a hearing voices group sort of thing, but the actual hearing voices group was based on a trauma model. So it links back to trauma. So, and I've spent a lot of time around people with my work experiencing schizophrenia. And a lot of it, from what I've seen, is the brain very much trying to make sense of something that's happened. So I think it's very much linked to trauma. When you do go into the definition of schizophrenia, the definition itself does get very hazy in how it's defined. So like, I mean, I think, and once again, it comes down to the labeling. Like if you came in, say, like if you're walking around your house singing away and talking to yourself, that's viewed as normal. If you're doing it in public, that could be labeled as, I mean, it's different extremes, but I guess how you present on the day. And once again, a lot of these, how they're done is based on circle this, circle that, like you've got all these questionnaires and all that, which okay is all right, but that's then and there. Like you can be happy one day, sad the next. You can be almost presenting as the signs of depression one day, and if you circle that, you've got depression. That's how easy it is. I'm not really making light of that. That's how easy it is. But I think treating the observable symptoms, like say that plant in the background sort of thing, I could diagnose it with quite a few things just based on my observation of it. It doesn't really get to the understanding. I think observation and understanding of a person are two different things. And that, so I think if any diagnosis should be made of someone, even with schizophrenia, for example, it's understanding not only does, well, this person just seems to me that they're not presenting as normal, and I've circled all the questions and all that, that they now have to label as schizophrenia, because that's what I had. I think if you go spend more time and understand and knowing that, and even if, because a lot of like psychologists aren't actually trauma informed, they don't have that trauma background, it's not in their training. So
really?
Having, like it sounds like there's been starting to get a shift towards, but I guess how quickly that is. And I guess if you're a psychologist that's never had that training and you're 20 years down the track sort of thing, when are you going to refresh that knowledge? Which trauma is like, a lot of psychology is more cognitive based, like you're thinking and you're rationing, but a lot of trauma is stored in the subconscious or stored in the body sort of thing. So your cognitive part is almost like the last part in the thing, the process. So whenever you come into an environment where there's like a smell or a sound sort of thing, you're reacting more before you're going, hey, there's a smell here, I find this threatening, okay, now I'll react sort of thing. It's like, well, that psoas is reacting. So the body is more reacting, and the subconscious, the hippocampus, is then sending the signal to the amygdala, to the, so the cognition rationalizing with this is sort of like, that's why a lot of people are in therapy for a long time, because it's like, it's a subconscious, it's the body that's storing the trauma, not so much the cognition, which then again gets back to the energy part. Whereas if, like with myself, like from my experience, going into a psychology appointment, talking about my emotions, which sometimes can be re-traumatizing if there's no way to release those emotions. Like sometimes talking about past traumas can re-traumatize if you've got no way to release it at the same time. So that's where it's like the desired results with the patient and the psychologist, for example, can cause a bit of burnout. So I think with the schizophrenia, the understanding why it is, why the person is that way, spending time to get to know them. And if you dig deep enough, you'll find the answer. It's probably some form of trauma. And you could go, well, maybe it's drug induced, but why are they drug induced? Like going deeper, like a lot of people have drug dependencies because not so much because they're trying to escape from something, they're seeking comfort. Like that's what the drugs bring them comfort. So,
it's the attachment to it as well, isn't it? It's a bit like when you know, why a smoker smokes. It's not because they're addicted to the nicotine, it's because their brain is associated holding this cigarette as a feeling of relaxation, although it's actually physiologically doing something very different. It's
and if you're de-stressing, then you're seeking comfort, you're relaxing yourself. The same as like with the breathing, it's like you go into that parasympathetic state, you're relaxing yourself. So you're nurturing yourself basically.
I love what you said earlier as well around that, and I'm a big believer in this, that we know our bodies are designed to heal. And it's one of the conversations I was having with the primal being lot Um,
Yeah, that was great.
and that when you realize that, and you only realize that by tapping into these methods, it's the only way you're going to figure it out. You know, you could hear it from me, you, anybody else that you trust, but even then, unless you sample these ideas and practice these methods, you're never going to believe it.
Yeah.
But when you try these methods, go through a period of healing, then you then get this little trigger, and that belief becomes so strong. And the brilliant thing about that is that belief is powerful. As we know, you know, belief in religion, as we know, is significantly powerful. Any form of belief is incredibly powerful and can totally change your state. It can change your psychological state, but it can also change your physiological state. So the brilliant thing about having this belief around your body is designed to heal is that that belief itself helps, you know, the body heal. So, yeah, so I'm such a big believer in it, not because I'm thinking, oh, if I believe this, I'm going to heal, but genuinely, I know, and I've seen it. You know, I've seen my body heal through these practices. So it's such a wonderful thing to figure out yourself. Dion, that was really cool. Thank you for that.
No worries. Thank you.
I really enjoyed that chat. And it's kind of one of those conversations where I know that we could probably go on for hours.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
loads in there, and it'd be lovely to have another chat.